Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Lal, and this is going to be the expedited accusation calendar with the State Court of Fulton County for today, December 12th, 2023. These are a list of cases in which individuals were recently arrested and booked on certain misdemeanor offenses. The cases were soon formally accused by the prosecutor, which is the Solicitor General's Office of Fulton County. This would be the defendant's initial appearance before a judicial officer, at which time I will let the defendant know of what is the new accusation number, what are the charges brought against the individual, as well as to appoint counsel and set a bond. If you are a defendant, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you in this particular case. For some of you, you may not qualify for public defense representation after today, so you would have to hire a private attorney. Also, for some of you, your cases will be reset to another court date, at which time then you may still continue to receive public defense representation. What's our next court date, Ms. Bridgewater?
It is December the 28th.
Okay. At this next court date, December 28th, most likely it will be addressed via Zoom. So for those of you who are planning to attend the next proceedings for these cases, please remember to get the Zoom link from the clerk's office. So position 3, Ms. Kim, you need a breakout to speak. Okay, for MH reasons. Any other, Mr. Cook, do you need a breakout for any of your cases?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Do we need an interpreter in any of the cases?
I don't have any.
Ms. Kim? All right.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. The state doesn't need a breakout, but I think it would be best if we save Mercado Reyes to the end of the calendar when the courtroom is cleared.
Position.
Let me see. I'm sorry. I don't. It's the only case with a CWAC charge.
Okay, got it.
Reyes Mercado.
Okay, I had it backwards. Reyes.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I see we may have private counsel cases as well as conflict. So, Deputy Francois, we're ready to go.
Yes, good afternoon, Judge Law. This is going to be position number 1, Mr. Alder. He also has a private attorney.
All right.
Good morning, Judge. Attorney Larry DeLand.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Mr. Richard Alder is case 23 CR 7863J. The case has been formally accused and the charges are criminal trespass, causing damage to property, and simple battery. Mr. Alder, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. DeLand, who is on Zoom. Do you see him? All right. And Mr. Howard, any priors?
No.
All right. Miss
Hope, I'm handling.
Miss Pope, yes. Good afternoon,
Good
Miss Pope.
afternoon.
And what go ahead.
This incident happened on December 7th, 2023, and officers responded to 1145 Beacon Hill crossing for a dispute over a shared dog. The defendant and the victim have been dating for 3 years. The victim, Miss Christy Hafner, Haffner, asked the defendant to leave the residence, which they do not share, and she locked herself in her bedroom on the bottom floor of her house. The defendant began to force his way through her bedroom door. In the process of doing so, chipped the door near the door handle. Miss Hafner barricaded herself in the bathroom of the bedroom as the defendant made entry into the bedroom. The defendant used a screwdriver to unscrew the door handle to the bathroom, grabbed her left hand, and pinched her middle finger. The officer did observe minor swelling and redness to the victim's finger. My office did speak with the victim, and she did indicate that she and the defendant had been in a relationship. They do not live together and they do not share children. She confirmed the events in the warrant. However, she did state that the door squished her hand as opposed to the defendant. She also stated that nothing like this had happened before, but she still does not want to have any contact with the defendant and would like for him to stay away from her residence. She should be here, present here on Zoom. The recommendation from the state will be UGAR pretrial level 1. No contact with Christy Hafner. Stay away from 1145 Beacon Hill Crossing, Alpharetta, Georgia. No weapons, no alcohol, no drugs.
Mr. Dalen, does your client object to a signature bond through pretrial where he has to report to pretrial once a month?
No, Your Honor. And I
Okay.
know that they do share custody of the dog, and I thought that the victim wanted no violent contact, so they could continue that, but I'll let the court know that.
Okay. Miss Christy, I think it was Helmer, if you would like to address the court, you would need to unmute and start your video, otherwise I will proceed. Okay, on the criminal trespass causing damage to property, that's going to be 1,500. On the simple battery, it's 1,000. Total bond is 2,500. It is a signature bond through pretrial services.
I'm sorry,
I think she's
Judge.
gone.
I didn't know I was able to unmute. So
Okay, all
I'm
right. Are you at a okay, all right. Now you're at a quiet spot. If you'd like to contribute to the proceedings, may I place you under oath?
yes, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes,
All right. Do you presently have the dog in question?
yes,
And would you like Mr. Alder to stay away from you and your home? You may put your hand out.
yes.
All right, thank you. You may mute your phone, Ms. Helmer. As I was saying, the bond is going to be set at $2,500 signature bond through pretrial services. Mr. Alder, once you sign up for your bond, you'll be released on bond. Please remember that you must comply with the following conditions in order to maintain your bond status. The first one is no further contact with Christy Helmer. I'm not sure how to spell her last name. You are to stay away, 200 yards away from 1145 Beacon Hill Crossing in Atlanta, Georgia. You're not allowed to return to that location. With regards to the ownership of the pet in question, that is a subject that has to be deferred to a civil case, and that is something that the parties can address further down the hill or further down the road. But at the present time, no contact and stay away. So that means until there is a civil court order establishing the ownership and title of the pet in question, you are to stay away from Ms. Helmer, from the pet, and from Beacon Hill Crossing. No illegal drugs and no weapons and no firearms. Your next court date will be sent to your current mailing address. Please be sure to update us in writing if you change your address. Thank you.
Position 13, Wagner.
Fulona Wagner is charged with battery, family violence, and accusation 23 CR 7859E from September 4th, 2023. Ms. Wagner, you have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Kim. Am I correct? Okay. Any price, Mr. Howard?
Ninth arrest, 2018 failure to appear, 2013 shoplifting conviction. This was level 2.
Mr. Pierre Thomas?
Got a brief facts of the cases. Looks like on 9/4/2023, the officer was dispatched to 447 Moreland Avenue Northeast, which is the Wish store, for an incident that occurred on westbound side of John Lewis Freedom Parkway Northeast, just before Boulevard Northeast. The caller, who was the victim in this case, the victim's name is Marcus, Marcus. One moment. I have it listed as poor, but I think it's more Moore hyphen Payton. I will double check that at the conclusion. But the victim stated that he got picked up by his child's mother. The defendant was going to give him a ride to work. The victim stated that the defendant needed gas, so he offered to give her $20 worth of gas. That was not sufficient, so she started asking for more money. When he kept questioning her why, she became upset and they began to argue. She stopped in traffic. He got out of the vehicle, began to walk. The victim stated that the defendant then threw a glass bottle at him and missed before getting out of the vehicle and chasing after him, eventually catching up to him and attacking him, causing scratches to his left lower forearm and his abdomen. We were able to get in contact with the with the victim in this case. He states that they do not live together. They share one child. He confirmed the events in the warrant. He stated that he got injured by the gate as he was trying to get away. He says that nothing like this has happened before. He states that they have since resolved the issue and the defendant has apologized. He does state, however, that the defendant does need anger management, and so he'd like that. I don't believe he's on the Zoom, but if we can sound for him at the conclusion of everything, that'd be greatly appreciated. But the recommendation from the state is a signature bond through the pretrial services, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and no contact, and the completion of a family violence intervention program.
All right. And is Marcus Moore Payton present? No? All right. Ms. Kim, this is going to be a $2,500 signature bond through pretrial services. Once she is released on the signature bond, she would need to comply with the following conditions. No contact with Marcus Moore Payton. The last name is hyphenated. In other words, stay 200 yards away from him. Do not communicate with him in any way, form, or manner, including on social media. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Any third-party transfer of the child must be done. Any transfer of the child they share together must be done through a third party. In other words, Ms. Wagner cannot be present when Mr. Moore Payton picks up or drops off the child in question. While she is out on a signature bond, she will enroll and complete 12 anger management classes. And she must begin those classes within 60 days of being released. So by her second visit with her pretrial services, she must show proof that she is enrolled in those classes and that she must show proof of completion of the classes. These anger management classes are not a premise of guilt or innocence. This is simply a condition of a bond. Thank you.
Your Honor, my client is going through very severe financial hardships. She's qualified for public defender services. She's a single mom, no child support she can collect. I was wondering if we can do just 1 day anger awareness class, which is paid by pretrial services. I'm just afraid that having 12-month anger management classes will be financial burden to my client.
That's why I've given her 60 days and she just owned a vehicle. So we're going to leave it at that.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Next case.
Position 4, Graves.
This is Quinteria Graves, charged with battery family violence from December 11th, 2023. The accusation is now 23 CR 7871F. Ms. Graves, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Watson Cafe. Any priors, Mr. Toussaint?
Yes. Third arrest, 2021, trespass, false imprisonment, battery. That's open in the cab count. Look at level 2.
I'm sorry, who is this, Your Honor?
Your Honor, has Miss Graves retained counsel? This is Keith Cook. I interviewed her just a few hours ago. Has she retained counsel in the?
I understand her attorney is Miss Zakia Watson Cafe. And Miss Watson Cafe, is this your client? Quinteria Graves.
I didn't do an intake today.
All right.
She spoke to Mr. Cook.
Oh, she did? Okay.
Yes.
Miss Graves, have you retained counsel other than the public defense office?
No.
No. And who is your attorney?
Mr. Cook.
Mr. Keith Cook?
Yes.
Did you give him the impression that you were going to hire an attorney?
No.
No, she did not, Your Honor. No,
All
not
right.
at all.
Then in that
Your
case,
Honor, Miss Watson Cafe is actually our conflict attorney, Your Honor.
I
Oh,
know.
okay.
I know. Mhm. So Mr. Cook, I guess you are it.
I guess so.
All right, sir. So, and so we've got information that she's got an open case, a felony case in DeKalb County. Mr. Walker,
Walker?
do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to 405 Fairburn Road, where they spoke to the victim, Mr. DeMonte Stewart. He advised that they live together and they have one child together. They were having a domestic dispute, at which point the defendant grabbed or snatched a cell phone out of the victim's hand. The officer did observe marks on his chest. The state is asking for a $1,500 surety bond to the one-count battery family violence, no contact with the victim, and stay away from the incident location. Of course, we'll be asking for no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond. I'm aware of the DeKalb County case. Unfortunately, I'm unable to see the victim in that matter. Just in case if the court was.
I was curious, yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook, any recommendation? The state's asking for 1,500 surety bond.
Your Honor, it's my understanding that, well, the alleged victim is the father of a child and with my client, Miss Graves. They live in the same home. So,
Oh dear.
yes. So, that's a bit of a problem, I guess. The child is 3 months old, so needs its mother for sure. My client has no problem with having no further contact. Beyond that, I think that we would certainly like, if we could, given the financial circumstances, to get a signature only bond, but we need to work out the details of the residence, I guess.
All right,
Your Honor, Mr. Stewart is on the line. If we could sound for him, please.
noted. Mr. DeMonte Stewart, you would need to start your video and unmute your panel. I need to figure out where you live. The host may need to prompt Mr. Stewart to start his video. All right, Mr. Stewart, can you see and hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you live at 405 Fairburn Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you live at that residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you involved in the DeKalb County case as well?
No.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Stewart?
No, ma'am.
All right, you may mute your screen. Thank you. Ms. Graves, your bond is going to be set at $3,000. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services. In order for you to sign up for this bond, you have to comply with the following conditions. First of all, you are to have no further contact with DeMonte Stewart. That's D''Montae Stewart. As long as Mr. Stewart resides at 405 Fairburn Road, you would have to find an alternative residence. So in other words, you need to stay away from 405 Fairburn Road in Atlanta, Georgia. You are allowed to return to that location one time only with a police officer to retrieve your belongings and your child. Then you must update the court with your next mailing address within 30 days of being released from the jail. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. And you are required to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program within 60 days of being released on bond. So by your second visit with pretrial, you must show proof that you are enrolled in such a program. Like I said, update us with your new mailing address. Make sure you show proof of being enrolled in a DVIP program within 60 days. and no further contact with DeMonte Stewart. In other words, there's not to be any visitation with him. You can't see him in person, no contact via phone, a computer, or even on social media. I will allow for third-party transfer of any child or children that you share with him. In other words, you cannot be present when there is a pickup and drop-off of the child in question. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
does pretrial or the,
It's pre-trial.
okay, they have a list of approved domestic violence intervention programs?
She would have to, no, the list isn't provided by pretrial. Y'all can either Google that or look it up on the, ask for the victim advocates services. They may have a list.
Okay, thank you.
Who do we have in courtroom 2?
This is position 8.
Miss Watson Cafe, is that your client?
I'm position 9, Your Honor,
Okay,
and 14.
okay, thank you. 9 and 14 for conflict, okay. This is Kayla Sathas Green, accused of simple battery family violence from December 11th, 2023. Accusations 23 CR 7862E. Ms. Sathas Green, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Second arrest. All she got is a false statement pertaining to motor vehicle insurance. That's open. I'd have done with it. That's all.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, brief facts of the case is that on December 11, 2023, the officer responded to 5820 Timber Lane Terrace in Atlanta, Georgia, and Fulton County, Georgia, in reference to a welfare check. The officer made contact with the defendant, who advised that she had gotten into a verbal and physical altercation with the victim. Looks like the victim's name is Xavier, Xavier Marcial, Marcial. The defendant herself stated that she had handed, looks like a juvenile XM, the victim's 7-month-old son, to the defendant. I'm sorry.
To the victim.
Yeah. Then entered his vehicle and an argument took place. The defendant stated that the defendant continued to argue with the male, and she became upset. The defendant admitted that she swung open-handedly and struck the victim on the side of his face, and at the same time accidentally striking the juvenile XM in the back of his head. The defendant stated that the victim was holding their child during the time of the incident. The victim was not on the scene, and the officer was not able to observe any injuries to the juvenile. Our office has not been able to get in contact with the victims, but if we can sound for them in accordance with Marcy's law. But given the limited history, the nature of the crime in this matter, Your Honor, the recommendation from the state is a signature bond through the pretrial services, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, no contact with the victim in this case, the adult victim in this case, and the completion of a family violence intervention program.
Okay. Xavier Marcia. All right, Mr. Cook, it will be a $1,500 signature bond through pretrial services. No further contact with Xavier Marcia. And she is also to stay away from wherever he lives. So does your client live with the alleged victim?
Yes, they live at 5820 Timber Lane Terrace, which is the address that belongs to her mother.
All right, I'll allow for a one-time visit for Miss Sathas Green to return to that location at 5820 Timber Lane Terrace in Atlanta. And that visit is either to retrieve her belongings so she can live elsewhere, or to verify that Xavier Marcel does not live there any longer. If Mr. Marcel does not live there any longer, she may return to the location. While she's out on a signature bond, she will enroll and complete 12 anger management classes, and those classes will begin within 60 days of being released. She will also update us with any changes of her mailing address. As I said, she's to have no contact with Xavier Marcel. If she shares any children with him, there can be third-party transfer of the child or children, which means that she cannot be present when there's a pickup or drop-off of the child. Thank you.
Now, Your Honor, could we run through that again just quickly?
Sure.
1,500 signature bond through pretrial.
No
no
contact with Xavier Marcel.
And no alcohol, drugs, or weapons.
Weapons, correct? She
And
can
then
have third-party transfer of the child.
Right.
She has to stay away from 5820 Timber Lane Terrace, Atlanta. She's
Mhm.
allowed a one-time visit with a police officer to either pick up her belongings and then provide us with a new address, or to verify that Marcel doesn't live there so that she can return to the property.
Okay. And there was a 12 anger management classes.
That she must begin within 60 days from today.
And I believe your policy is, unless otherwise stated, the pretrial is level 1.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Report once a month, correct. Thank you, sir.
Judge Law, for the cruelty to children, that was null crossed.
That was NOD'd, so that charge is not on the docket.
Thank you. Position 14, Wiggins.
Okay, that would be Ms. Watson's client. Would we also be available to have position 9 available next? New, and I'm not going to attempt the last name.
Yes, Your Honor, I can wait on 14. I'm sorry, on position 9, because I
Okay.
believe we might need a breakout. There's some MH issues with that.
Okay, sounds good.
But I'm ready on 9, Your Honor.
On 14, you
I'm
mean.
sorry. I'm ready on 14. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay, no problem. Deasia Wiggins is accused of simple battery family violence from 23 CR 7860G. Ms. Wiggins, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Watson Cafe. Any priors, Mr.
Fifth
Howard?
arrest, got an open case in Superior Court. Shoplifting, window tint, suspended license and possession of marijuana. It's 22 SC 182425.
1AC 182
SC 182425.
425. Okay, last 3 numbers wrong. Okay, Mr. Pierre Thomas?
Yeah, a brief facts of the case is that on December 11, 2023, the officers were dispatched to 2119 Brent Creek Way, Southwest Atlanta in Fulton County, Georgia. In reference to a domestic dispute, the victim stated that she had her part of the rent, but her roommate, the defendant, wanted her to pay a late fee. Both parties fought over the $200 late fee. The victim stated that she was hit about 10 times on the back of her neck by the defendant. The parties have been roommates for about 4 months. I guess a little bit more background is that the victim stated that she had locked the door to her room to avoid any physical contact with the defendant when the defendant busted in the room by unlocking the door with a knife. The victim stated that once the defendant entered the room, the defendant stated that she does not have time for text messages. She needed her money and that she was going to show her today or that day, at which point she swung first and she held her by her hair, put her on the bathroom sink, and started punching her in the back of her neck the 10 times. There was, however, a witness, Miss Teaira, Teaira Law, who stated that she was there visiting her friend who was the victim, and she gave a consistent story with the victim. Our office has been able to get in contact with the victim. She states that her and the defendant are roommates. The victim confirmed the events in the police report. She stated that the defendant tried to kick her out 3 days ago. She stated that she sustained swelling to her foot, and her foot was blue, and that her toenail had been completely ripped off, and that she had pain in her neck. And she could barely move her neck. She went to the hospital. She's waiting on the results of an X-ray. I do believe that she is on the call, so if we could sound for her at the conclusion of the state's request. But her name is Angel, Angel Lalor, Lalor. The state's request, given the history or the limited history, but there is history, is the signature bond through the pretrial services, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, to stay away from the incident location, no contact with the victim, and the completion of an anger management course.
Angel Lalor, if you are present on Zoom, you would need to unmute and start your video. All right, Miss Watson Cafe, it looks like a roommate situation gone awry. She would need to stay away from the location and have no contact with the alleged victim. Any response?
Yes, Your Honor, we would ask that she not be required to stay away from the location. It's my understanding in speaking to Ms. Wiggins that the lease is in Ms. Wiggins' name, not the alleged victim. It's also my understanding that Ms. Wiggins, as a no good deed goes, Ms. Wiggins allowed the alleged victim to reside there. Some disputes arose. I won't get into too many of the facts, but we vehemently deny the allegations that have been brought against Ms. Wiggins. I think the issue here is that this is Ms. Wiggins' place, and she allowed this individual to stay there. So we would ask that she not be required to vacate her own place because she essentially wouldn't have anywhere else to go. She's also responsible, obviously, for paying the rent at that place.
Understood. Unfortunately, I don't have the alleged victim on Zoom to let me know whether she has vacated the premises. So, Miss Angel Lalore, I'm sure your attorney is going to advise you on this. But if two people are residing in that property and you are on the lease and you are charged with a crime, there's a very strong possibility that you cannot return to the location until the victim voluntarily vacates the premises or you file a civil dispossessory action to have the individual removed from the property. You yourself cannot personally exercise any self-help to have the individual removed from the property. Your bond is going to be set at $1,500. It is a signature bond through pretrial services. The conditions, I will address you shortly, but you may need to pay attention to this so that you understand the conditions to your bond. You are to have no contact with Angel Lalore or Lolar. You are to stay away from 2119 Bent Creek Way in Southwest Atlanta, the apartment unit where you reside, and the entire complex. You are allowed to visit that location one time only with a police officer. At this visit, if the officer verifies that Angel Lolar or Lolar has vacated the premises and that her personal belongings are no longer there, then you may return to the location. Otherwise, you are on that one visit, you can retrieve your personal belongings, then update the court with your new mailing address because you need to live elsewhere. You can seek to have Angel Lolar leave the premises by filing a civil dispossessory action. And in the meantime, you are to report to pretrial once a month. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and not possess any weapons or any firearms. Your next court date will be sent to your new mailing address, so please be sure to update the court in writing. Ms. Wiggins, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. The reason we say that, so that you don't make any comments that could incriminate your case or make it difficult for your attorney to represent you. So would you like to exercise your right to remain silent, or would you like to say something?
I'm okay. Thank you.
Right? So
And
you're
Your Honor,
okay to remain
the
silent? All right. All
Your
right.
Honor, the victim was not here. I thought the victim would speak, but we did speak to her office. She says she still does reside at the residence. She still needs to reside there until she could find other accommodations, and she is in fear of her life.
All right. So she is, so Miss Wiggins will have, yes, Miss Wiggins?
Yes, when I was getting incarcerated by the police, she stated that she was gonna call her U-Haul, and she was also on the phone with her mother. She said that she was gonna call her U-Haul the same day to vacate the premises.
Ms. Wiggins, I'm your attorney. I'm gonna talk to you about making arrangements for that. We don't want to talk about any of the facts of the case.
Yes, ma'am.
So unless you have a question about bond, I will talk to you shortly.
So
Is that
right
okay?
now, until the alleged victim voluntarily vacates the premises or through a dispossessory proceeding, Miss Wiggins has to stay away from that apartment complex. Like I said,
Yes,
she
Your Honor.
has the right to a one-time visit. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Next case, please.
Position 6, Lewis.
This is State versus Andre Lewis, accused of battery, family violence, 23 CR 7874J. Mr. Lewis has been, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Cook, or Miss Atay, excuse me. Your attorney is Miss Atay, and this is for a charge of battery family violence from October 20th, 2023. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Yeah, this is pretty long. He got over 15 total.
All right, any
Last
open
arrest?
cases?
Yeah. Well, hold on. Last arrest was in June for simple battery disorderly conduct. That was out of Henry County.
Mhm.
On probation in Clayton County, possession of a firearm by convicted felon or felony first offender, driving without a valid license. Also, possession of cocaine, possession of a knife or a firearm during the commission, possession of drug-related objects. That's another one. Yeah, and he on probation in Fulton. I got robbery, 2 counts of ag assault, possession of a firearm by convicted felon. That's 19 SC 67836 something. They left the other number off. But in 2022, they gave him 10 years probation for that.
All right.
That's it.
Got it. Okay, and okay, Mr. Walker? Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to Slingshot Social Gaming Club, where it met with the victim, who is the wife of the defendant. The victim's name is Bertina Parker. She advised that her and her husband were having a relationship disagreement, at which time things became heated, and he punched her in the mouth, busting her lip. He did flee the scene from the incident. The officer did observe the busted lip of the victim, Ms. Parker. The state is asking for a $3,000 surety, a no contact, and it's not a stay away because they were at a public location, but a no contact and no weapon, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond. The victim is here, and we would sound for her, Ms. Bertina Parker.
Ms. Parker, if you would like to, I did see a Bertina, but I don't know where she is.
It might be iPhone now. I'm not sure. I seen it earlier.
No, I see Bertina, but she's muted and her video is not.
Okay.
All right, Miss
I'm here.
Anita. Okay.
Yes,
All right, Miss Bertina Parker, would you like to address the court, or
yes,
please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
yes.
And what would you like to tell us?
Say that again.
What would you like to state?
Oh, no, I don't have any statements.
Okay, then please mute your screen. Ms. Atay?
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 37 years old. He does work, or he was working. He was recently laid off. So he does qualify for public defender services. He does care for 3 children, ages 13, 10, and 6, with his wife. The incident happened in October. When I spoke with her, she stated that she was fine with contact with with my client, her husband, who lives with her, and they care for the children together, and they have been living together since the incident in October. I understand that there is some history. I don't know what, I didn't see what the recommendation was, but I would ask for a signature bond through pretrial services, level 3, based on the history, so that he can get out and continue to care for the children and live with his wife. And of course, no further violent contact with the complaining witness.
All right, is the marital home at Clay Court in Southeast?
Yes.
Right. So presently his bond is going to be a $2,000 surety bond. No further contact with Bertina Parker. They may do third-party transfer of any children that they share with each other. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Once his next court date is going to be December 28th. If he does make bond, he needs to stay away from Miss Parker, in other words, 200 yards away from her, and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. He's also to stay away from the marital home at 4047 Clay Court in Conyers, Georgia. If he's allowed a one-time visit to retrieve his personal belongings, but within 30 days of being released on bond, he must update the court with his new mailing address in writing. Thank you.
Position 12, Thomas.
Come on, Mama.
State versus Darian Thomas, accused of 2 counts of battery, family violence, and 1 count of cruelty in the 3rd degree from a December 11th, 2023 incident. Mr. Thomas's accusation is 23 CR 7865G. Mr. Thomas, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Kim.
First arrest, jail was the recommendation.
All right.
Your
Mr.
Honor,
Thomas?
brief facts of the case is that on December 11, 2023, the officer responded to a person injured in regards to a dispute call at the location of 50 Mount Zion Road, Atlanta, Georgia, Southwest, and in Fulton County, Georgia. That is the Nirvana at Glen Rose Apartments. The victim informed that she was in a physical altercation with her significant other, who she has been living with for 2 years, who happens to be the defendant. The victim stated that she was approached by the defendant in question, and she approached the defendant and she questioned him about the care of their child. But the verbal dispute escalated when he called the defendant,
Who?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
When he called the defendant a bitch, when he called the victim a bitch, to which she responded, your mother. At that time, the defendant struck her on the right side of her face with a closed fist. I'm sorry, on the left side of her face with a closed fist. Officer was able to observe visible injuries. The officer stated that the victim stated that she attempted to get away, but in the attempt, the defendant struck her again, but missed, striking the juvenile initials D and T in the head. The officer also observed a noticeable bump to the juvenile DT's head, which was approximately the size of a quarter or larger. Also, the victim advised that she was able to put the juvenile down safely, and the defendant continued to actively strike her, and at one point picked her up and slammed her to the ground. She stated that she had to grab an object to prevent him from continuing to strike her. She stated that she ran outside, and while she was outside, he began to throw all of her belongings outside, including their child's stroller and a car seat. And that's when she attempted to get in contact with the first responder as she observed flashing lights, and she got in contact with the Atlanta Fire Department. The defendant himself admitted to pushing the victim in the face. Our office was able to get in contact with the victim. The victim stated that that she and the defendant were in a relationship. They lived together at the incident location. They share that one child. She confirmed the events in the warrant. She states that they have had violent incidences in the past, but nothing to this extent. I do believe that she is on the call, so if we could sound for her. Her name is
Darius Grace.
Yes, Your Honor. And the recommendation from the state is a $3,000 surety bond, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, no contact with the adult victim, stay away from the incident location, and the completion of a family violence intervention program.
Darius Grace, I do see you on the Zoom. If you want to contribute to the proceeding, you have a right to unmute and start your video. Otherwise, we will move on.
Good afternoon. I didn't want him to
Do you have anything to add?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Was the child allegedly hurt during the course of this altercation?
Yes, ma'am, but he's fine. There wasn't any serious injuries. It was just a knot on his forehead.
How old is the child?
He's 1.
And a knot on the child's head is not serious?
No,
you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. Do you still reside at the Mount Zion Road?
No, ma'am, I don't. I'm actually working on going back home.
And have you vacated the premises? Or are you still there?
I have vacated the premises, but I still have belongings that I have to go back and get.
All right. Do you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am.
All right. Miss Kim?
Yes, Your Honor. My client, Mr. Thomas, is 31 years old. He was born in Alabama, and he has been here in Georgia for the last 6 years, Your Honor. They do have one child together, and my client is gainfully employed at Ashley Home Store as a subcontractor. He would like to keep his job, so he wants to be released to take care of he has to pay for child support every month for other 3 children that he has. So he's basically breadwinner for 4 minor children as of now. So it is very important for him to keep his job. And Your Honor, he also has a bachelor's degree for sports administration and minor in business. I believe that he can return maybe tomorrow to verify that she completely moved out and then return home because the house is in his name as well. We have no objection to no contact at all. And we would like to request for signature on bond through pretrial level 1 since he is recommended. Thanks.
Thank you. On count 1, the battery family violence as to Darius Green, that's going to be 2,500. That's a signature bond for pretrial services. With regards to the battery family violence, with regards to the minor DT Jr., that's a 2,500 surety bond. And the cruelty in the 3rd degree, that's going to be a $500 surety bond. His total bond is going to be a 5,500 split bond. Once he makes bond, he's required to report to pretrial once a month. He's to have no contact with Darius Grace and no contact with DT Jr. If he wishes to have contact with the minor child that he shares with Ms. Grace, he would need to file a separate legitimation action in the appropriate superior court and get a superior court order for visitation and joint custody. He may return to 50 Mount Zion Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 1 week from today. So Miss Grace has the next 7 days to completely remove all her belongings, as she has indicated. And then after that, he is permitted to return to 50 Mount Zion Road, Atlanta, Georgia, and that would be from December 19th, 2023 onwards. But at all times, he's to have no contact with Darius Grace and DT Jr., unless otherwise specified by the court. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Once he makes bond, he is to report to pretrial once a month, and he is to then enroll in a domestic violence intervention program within 60 days of making bond. He will report to pretrial and also show proof of enrollment by his, I believe, his 2nd visit with pretrial. Thank you.
Judge, for the cruelty to children, for the willful obstruction charge, that was NOD.
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Oh, his next court date is December 28th. Who do we have?
This is position 5, Johnson. Okay.
Mr. Damon Johnson's accused of giving false information to a law enforcement officer on December 11, 2023. He has been formally accused under 23 CR 7873Y. Mr. Johnson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Atay. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
23 total. 2019 false imprisonment, cruelty in the 3rd ag assault. On probation for that. On probation in Upson County, possession of a firearm by convicted felon. I think he had a hold. Hold on.
I didn't see one, but
Okay, maybe not. But yeah, you're on probation in Clayton and Upson County.
okay. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, he did. He got a hold out
Two
of
holes.
both.
That's the one
Yeah.
with 2 holes. Sorry.
Yeah, he
Okay.
got a hold out of both. Clayton County is the FTA, terrorist threats.
And what's
Upson
the
is
other
a
one?
probation
Downtown where? Give.
Hmm?
What's it? Clayton County and Upson County. So 2
Correct.
holes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
That's
know
all.
Clayton is, but okay.
This is my
Mr.
case, Your
Walker?
Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, law enforcement identified the defendant drinking an open container in Woodruff Park. Upon making contact with the defendant, he provided the false name of Benjamin Vonlin, Eventually his real identity was ascertained, and as the court just stated, he has 2 open warrants or holds. The state is simply requesting SOB through the jail to be released to either of those holds, Your Honor. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol on bond.
Ms. Tay, it'll be $1,000 signature bond through the jail with a release to either Upson County or Clayton County, whichever picks him up first. No illegal drugs and no alcohol and no weapons.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That is signature bond.
But Francois is a release to the hold only.
Okay, yeah, I got it. 1,000 jail to the whole. Got you. Thank you. Position number 2, Mr. Barnett.
Antoine Barnett has 4 misdemeanor offenses stemming from a traffic incident on December 11, 2023, accused under 23 CR 7866E. Mr. Antoine Barnett, the charges are giving false information to an officer, failure to have license on person, driving while license suspended or revoked, and operating a vehicle with an expired tag. Yeah, 2 of those offenses are typically arrestable. You have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Atay. Any priors, Mr.
11 total. 2022 suspended license DUI out of Gwinnett. 2019 driving while intoxicated, unlicensed operator conviction. 2018 driving while intoxicated conviction.
That's good. Thank you. Ms. Cole?
Yes. This incident was from December 11, 2023, when Officer Watson was patrolling the area of 3330 Piedmont Road when he realized a blue Honda Civic with New York tag DJ U2167. After running the vehicle on the MDT, the officer was advised that the vehicle's registration was expired. After conducting a traffic stop, the officer was met by Mr. Antoine Barnett. Mr. Barnett advised that he did not have his license on his person, but insisted he was licensed to drive, and identified himself by writing down the name Mr. Charles Brown. And he provided that information several times to 2 different officers. After running the name on GCIC and it didn't come back, the officer conducted a deeper investigation, at which time the officer was able to find out Mr. Brown on, I guess, ACIC. I'm sorry, was able to find that his name was actually Antoine Bennett. He retrieved his real name, real date of birth, and Mr. Bennett advised that he lied because he knew he had an FTA out of Gwinnett.
I'm sorry, did you say Bennett or Barnett?
I'm sorry, Barnett.
Okay.
Barnett.
And what's the state's recommendation for bond?
On giving false name, UJR to the jail, failure to have a license, UJR to the jail, driving while license suspended. A little concerned about that one because he's on a driving while license suspended bond right now. The expired tag, UJR to the jail, driving while license suspended, but at least want some type of either pretrial level 1 or $1,000 surety bond.
Okay.
No driving without valid license, no alcohol, or drugs.
Ms. Atay?
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 41 years old. He does have 6 children, including a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old. He does work full-time as an electrician. He does deny the allegations. He states, he's been living in Georgia for many years. I am requesting a signature on bond through the jail. I'm not sure if there's a hold. I think there is. So I would request a signature on bond through the jail. For the driving without a license, if Your Honor is not inclined to do a signature bond through the jail, then a signature bond through pretrial services level 1. Otherwise, the signature on bond through the jail as recommended by the state is acceptable to us.
I do see a hold, but I don't know where it's from. Is it Gwinnett? Yes, Gwinnett. Okay. On the giving false information, that's going to be a $5,000 surety bond. Excuse me, signature bond for pretrial. On the failure to have license on person, that's a $500 signature bond through pretrial. The expired tag is a $500 signature bond through pretrial. Driving while license suspended or revoked, Mr. Barnett has multiple offenses in his history, including the one from the Gwinnett County. That's going to be a $3,000 surety. So that's going to be a $6,000 signature bond through pretrial and a $3,000 surety bond. That's a $9,000 split bond. Once he is released, he must be picked up by Gwinnett County to address the hold. And then after he's resolved the hold, he will need to report to pretrial once a month. He is not allowed to drive unless he has a valid driver's license with his correct name and address, adequate insurance, and proper registration. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no firearms. Next court date is going to be December 28th. If he bonds out, he would have to be picked up by Gwinnett County. Thank you.
Did you say 500 SOB to pretrial on the expired tag? Was that the last?
Yes,
one?
it's a 500 on the failure to have license on person, expired tag 500 signature bond through pretrial. Giving false name is a 5,000 signature bond through pretrial. Driving while license suspended is a $3,000 surety.
Position 7, Marshall.
Okay. Cecil Marshall is accused of criminal trespass, and the incident date is from yesterday, 23 CR 7876A. And Mr. Marshall, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Ms. Atay. And any priors, Mr. Howard?
30 total.
All right.
Last arrest was 2019 out of New York. Says coercion, 3rd degree.
That's good. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to 2564 Lantern Lane, where they spoke to the victim, Mr. John Mwati, spelled M-W-A-T-I. He advised that he and the defendant are roommates. They were having some type of disagreement. His roommate forced his way into his bedroom, knocking over a clothing shelf. The state is asking for a no contact, a stay away, a signature bond through pretrial services, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. We have had contact with the victim. He advised that this is not the first time they've had an altercation, and he does not desire to have any contact and wants to stay away from that location. And of course, we would sound for him, Mr. Mwati.
Do these gentlemen live in some kind of rooming house?
From what I gather, yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Mwati, if you're on Zoom, you need to unmute and start your video, otherwise we will proceed. Ms. Atay?
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 57 years old. He has been living, it's a roommate situation, like a home where you rent a room.
Right.
And so he's fine with the no further violent contact with the complaining witness, but he's been there for a year, and this complaining witness has been there, I think, for 2 months. So I do want him to be able to return to his home. And I am fine with the signature on bond through pretrial services. And that's all.
Okay. It's a $1,500 signature bond through pretrial services. Mr. Marshall can sign up for his bond, but he must report to pretrial once a month. He is to have no contact with Mr. Mwati, and he's to stay away from 2526 Lantern Lane in South Fulton. He cannot return to that location. One-time visit with a police officer to retrieve his belongings, and then he would need to find alternative housing. Unfortunately, Mr. Marshall, you're the one charged with the crime, not Mr. Mwati. So you're the one who has to step away until this situation is resolved. Please be sure to update the court with your current mailing address or your new mailing address within 30 days of being released on a signature bond. You must report to pretrial once a month. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. and no contact with Mr. Mawadi. Yes, sir.
Like I said, my name is Cecil Marshall. I've been living there for a year.
Understood. But do you see Mr. Mawadi in the courtroom?
No, he kicked
Turn around, turn around. Do you see him?
No.
All right. Who is
Nah, but I
charged
just-
with who is charged with the crime?
Now he got arrested too. He kicked in my door. That's
Was he arrested for this case?
Yes, Your Honor, my client does state that he called the police and that Mr. Mawadi was taken, was arrested shortly before. So he did call the police first because Mr. Mawadi did open his door. That's in the warrant.
Do you
that
have
he
a case number? No, hang
kicked
on.
in my door. He didn't break it. He kicked in my door. My door is broke.
What is the case number from
Your Honor, we
Mr. Mawadi?
talked to the victim, so I highly doubt that he was arrested because
I couldn't find
he hadn't
anything,
made contact
but
with
I
him
know that my
otherwise.
client did state that he called the police first, and it is in the warrant that Mr. Mawadi did open his door or kick it in.
He needs to stay away.
Hmm.
Mr. Marshall needs to stay away, and then until this is resolved. You're the one arrested. I don't have a case number for Mr. Mawadi. There is no cross arrest. There's no cross defendant arrest as far as I can see on the warrant. Y'all would have to be arrested from the same incident. Just because Mr. Mawadi may have been arrested before does not make what allegedly happened kosher.
So when he got arrested a few minutes before me by kicking in my door, I
May I have the agency that arrested him? May I have the agency that arrested him?
Fulton County Police, the same
Okay.
officer that came and got me, picked him up before, put him in a car, took him to the precinct. He came back a few hours later while I was still there. But he kicked in my door. I called the police first because he broke into my door. My
Yes,
door
Mr.
literally.
Marshall, that is in the warrant, and I would,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So, Ms. Atay, if you have proved that Mr. John Mawati was also arrested as a cross-defendant by a separate agency, and if he was cited or something to that effect, then I will amend it to can only stay away from the property in accordance with the rooming house directive. So if the rooming house wants either or both of them out, then they would have to comply with that.
Your
But
Honor,
right now, he's to stay away until I have evidence or information that John Mawadi was also arrested as a result of this incident. I don't have any of that right now. Thank you.
Position 11, Smith.
This is State versus Bobby Botner Smith, accused of battery family violence from October 24th, 2023. Case number is 23 CR 7872F. Mr. Smith, you've been accused of this misdemeanor offense. You have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Keith Cook. Any priors?
21 total. Last arrest was probation for this year. Appears to have an open case in Douglas County, violation of family violence order. On probation in Fayette County. I got a burglary in Cobb County. Fayette County was a suspended license, looked like it.
All right, but he's got a probation violation for a TPO?
I don't know. I'm
For
saying
family
he has an
violence
open
order?
case of, out of Douglas County, violation of
see.
family violence order. Yeah,
Okay,
that
got
was
it.
from this year.
Okay, thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
Pierre Thomas?
Yeah, brief facts is that on 10/24/2003, the officer was dispatched to the incident location, that being 3091 Sable Run Road, South Fulton in Fulton County, Georgia, in reference to a battery family violence. The officer observed marks, bruises, and swelling to the victim's forehead. The victim stated that her and her husband, the defendant, were in a verbal dispute, which led to a physical altercation at that location. The victim advised that she questioned her husband. He became hostile and irate. And he became verbal and walked towards her in a verbal aggressive manner and began to threaten a divorce. The victim then questioned the defendant about him cheating on her. She stated that she attempted to help the defendant pack his items, when he aggressively charged towards her and placed his hands on her and forcibly placed his hands and pushed her to the ground and began to strike her in the face with a closed fist. She stated that moments later during the physical altercation is when the defendant finally stopped striking her and fled the scene. The victim advised that they have been married for approximately 1 year and have lived together for approximately 1 month. Our office has been able to get in contact with the victim in this case. She states that she and the defendant are married and they currently are living separately, and that they share one child. I do believe that she is on the call. Her name is Kim Bayata, Kimbyatatta Smith, traditional spelling. Your Honor, the state is concerned for several reasons. The most important is that the 2023 arrest for the violation of a family violence order in Douglas County, we were not able to ascertain whether or not it's her or the same victim, but there is also a 2003 arrest which came prior to this case for a criminal trespass family violence out of Douglas County as well. The state's request is a $7,500 surety bond, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, no contact, and a stay away from that incident location, and the completion of a family violence intervention program.
Okay, Mr. Cook?
Can we hear from Ms.
Oh, I'm
Smith?
sorry. Yes, Ms. Kimbyata Smith. Okay. Ms. Smith, if you'd like to raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Who took out the family violence order against Mr. Smith?
Okay, so actually, it was written up that way due to the TV being broken at the home, but there was no physical like hitting or anything like that. But I'm guessing that's how the police wrote it up when he was called.
Maybe you and I asked a different question.
Okay.
Who took out the family violence protective order against Mr. Smith?
There was no protective order on Mr. Smith are you pertaining to the October incident?
The Douglas County incident.
Correct. There was no protective order taken out on Mr. Smith. I believe that was probably a condition of what ended up happening from him breaking the TV. I believe that was a condition that he was given, but there was no protective order taken out.
And you were involved in the TV incident?
Correct.
Okay. What else would you like to tell me about the October 24th, 2023 incident, which I assume is different from the TV incident?
That is correct. So the October incident, I was very emotional. I was very upset due to finding out that Mr. Smith was cheating. And I did call and I would like for Mr. Smith and I to continue to work on our marriage. I would like for, I guess I don't have a say so on whether the charges can be dropped or not, but I would want that to happen. And I would want us to move forward with raising our son. I don't want it to be a situation where we have to go through a third party in order to, raise him or parent him.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Yes, Your Honor, I would just take it from where the witness left it. They share a child.
Just a minute, sir. Mr. Smith, I'll give you a chance to speak. Mr. Cook, please continue. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, they do share a child, and as we've heard from the alleged victim, she would like him to come back home, and she believes there was some misunderstanding on the report she filed. They have a couple of homes. He could stay away from the Sable Run Road home, which I believe is actually hers, but he would like to be able to see his child. He is in the construction industry. I think Miss Smith is a teacher. He has a GED in trade. He would like to get out as soon as possible. we would ask for a signature bond. Again, he would like arrangements to be made so that he can see his child, and we would ask the court to seriously consider the wife's desire that there be no contact restrictions.
Bond is set at $5,000. It is a surety bond. I'm so sorry. Yes, Mr. Smith? You have a right to remain silent.
Yes,
Anything
ma'am.
that you choose to say, your statements can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case.
Yes.
And you might also jeopardize your defenses.
Yes, ma'am. I don't wish to do that. I just wanted to clear up a couple of things. That case was resolved in Douglas County. I never had a criminal trespass. I don't know what he's talking about. But that case was resolved. I did 30 days in jail. That was out in the Douglasville thing. That's out.
No, hang on. The case was resolved because you were arrested for a violation of a family violence order and you served time?
What happened was.
That is not resolution.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
is called conviction.
Right, I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would advise my client not to speak any further.
I already told him that. He won't listen.
I mean, it was just some things that wasn't clarified, that's all. That's it, like the criminal trespass, I was never a criminal trespass, I was at my own home. It was, damage to property, which was my own TV. But what I was trying to say was, even with my wife, there was, I'm not gonna get back into that, but I'm just trying to clarify that there was something that the Douglas victim was resolved. I never heard of a criminal trespass.
You do realize you have 21 arrest cycles, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you think that history helps with your bond?
No, ma'am.
All right. So I recommend that you listen to your attorney and exercise your right to remain silent before you dig your grave any deeper.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a pretty picture. Family violence is not a pretty picture. The warrant doesn't paint a pretty picture. And right now, what you're just telling me makes it even muddier.
Yes, I understand.
Your bond is $5,000. It is a surety bond. Your next court date is December 28th. You have to have no contact with Kimbiata Smith. And if you don't recollect what that means you stay 200 yards away from Miss Smith. You're not to be within 200 yards of her. You're not to communicate with her. You're not to call her by phone, by computer, not through a third party. And that means you can't even discuss her on social media.
Yes, ma'am.
You can have third-party contact with your child or children that you share with Ms. Smith, which means that a third party must pick up and drop off the child or children in question. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. And you are to stay away from 3091 Sable Run Drive in South Fulton. You may return one time only with a police officer to retrieve your personal belongings, and within 30 days of being released, you must update the court with your new mailing address. Please be wary. You've already understand what a family violence order is, and you understand the consequences of violating it. My bond order is tantamount to like a protective order. If you violate it, you'll be back in jail with no bond.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Judge Law, the last three cases are requested for breakouts. That's positions 9, 3, and 10.
Okay.
Excuse me, Judge. I have an Orlin Reyes Mikado. I did not ask for a breakout. Is he in the courtroom?
Position 10, Mikado Reyes. Is he in the courtroom, Deputy Francois?
Yes, he's right here.
I do believe that needs a breakout.
Well, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, but, okay.
Because of the
The
nature
wave
of the
sounding.
charge.
It's a lot of wave sounding.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you.
So,
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Orlin Reyes Mercado, your case number is 23 CR 7875J. We're going to address your case by sidebar, which means that we'll be in a breakout session. And please remember that you have a right to remain silent and that your attorney is Mr. Cook. All right, with the host, please place Mr. Cook, me.
One moment. Judge number 3, Roy Brammer.
Yes.
That's really Rico Brown. I'm not sure if the state knows that or not.
Okay. All right, the host is going to place quite a few of us in a breakout. So that will be Mr. Cook, me, Miss Watson Cafe, Ian Walker, Miss Holly, Mr. Tucson Howard, he's also going to go in there, kicking and fighting us. And
I don't have to go.
yes, you do. Let me see. Miss Kim, Miss Atay, would you like to join us in the breakout? Because I'm addressing the waiver cases. Okay, just
I have position number 3, so if that's being handled in the breakout, I'd like to go as well.
all right.
please.
Yes, please.
And Your Honor, before we go to the breakout, can I inquire about position number 9? Did they bond out? We haven't addressed them.
Miss, that is,
Position 9?
yeah.
Yes.
I didn't think so.
Okay, well, let's go in the breakout and I'll look it up in the meantime.
One last thing before we go into the breakout room, I see a Diana on the screen. She's the victim in position 10, I believe. I just want to make the court aware of that because we will need a sound for her at some point in time during the hearing.
All right. Miss Anita Butts.
And Miss Anita Butts is on my case, Your Honor. She's a witness to the incident
All right.
and wanted to be in support of a bond for
All right,
her
let's
son.
go ahead and go into the breakout. We can pause the recording and the or the YouTube or the live stream while we're in the breakout. Thank you.
Hey, Adriana, I don't
Hey,
think,
sorry,
hey,
I got caught up.
oh no, you're okay. So they did request an interpreter earlier, but I think now they're saying he doesn't need an interpreter.
So they didn't need me?
No, I think that's Mr. Reyes sitting in the seat now, but I don't think they need the interpreter, but you can wait till they come back and make sure.
Okay, okay.
But they
Yeah,
haven't
I'm
heard back
sorry.
yet.
I was like, oh, please, please. And then, thank you. I'll be here.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Miss Diana Soto, if you are present, please unmute and start your video if you want to say something. Otherwise, you have a right to remain silent. I mean, meaning that you don't have to contribute to the proceeding. Miss Diana Soto, okay. We just addressed position Mr. Mercado Reyes Mercado, who is represented by attorney Mr. Cook. Mr. Reyes Mercado, do you speak and understand English?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the information provided in the sidebar, your bond is going to be $3,000 on each count. That's a cash bond only. You're to have no contact with Diana Soto. You're to have no contact with any children that you share with Ms. Soto. And once your next court date is going to be December 28th. No illegal drugs, no weapons, and no firearms. And the state has indicated an intent to transfer your case to the district attorney's office as a felony matter. Thank you. Next case is position 3. Deputy Francois, is Roy Brammer in the courtroom?
Yes.
All right.
Have a seat right here.
Mr. Roy Brammer, you are charged with disorderly conduct and terroristic threats and acts. Please have a seat, sir. Please sit down. If you do not sit down, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Your case number is 23 CR 7870B. You have been charged with disorderly conduct and terroristic threats and acts. Presently, based on the information we have discussed in a sidebar, your bond is going to be $1,000 on each count. That's a $2,000 signature bond through the jail, and you cannot be released. You can only be picked up by the Adams County authorities in Colorado based through extradition because you have a fugitive hold from the state of Colorado. So this is a $2,000 signature bond through the jail with a release to his fugitive hold. Thank you.
Position 9. That's not yours.
This is State versus New Roll, and I do apologize, I can't pronounce your last name, but you are accused of simple battery. Your bond is presently going to be $2,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services. You will report to pretrial twice a month. This is level 2. And in addition to reporting to pretrial twice a month, you must also show proof that you are continuing to see your MH physician. So you must show proof of your appointment dates and continuing treatment to the pretrial officer. There shall be no contact with Athethra Butts and no violent contact with any minors, including SB, at the home. I understand that someone called Anita Butts is on Zoom. All right, she hasn't been able to connect through audio. All right, that concludes Mr. New Roll case. Thank you. Ms. Chansey, was that for the DeSoto matter?
For Mr. Regis, also.
Oh, he speaks English.
He spoke English.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Ms. Diana Soto.
Judge Law, we're completed here in Portland too. Thank you.
Okay, all right. We're just going to go down the calendar with the attorneys. Position.
I did want to. I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute it when you were asking me if I wanted to say something, but I couldn't figure out how to unmute it.
Ms. Soto, please raise your right hand.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
All right. So the bond for Mr. Reyes Mercado is a $6,000 cash bond only. He's to have no contact with you. He's to stay away from all your locations. He's to have no contact with any minor children that he shares with you unless he wants to file a legitimation action. And his case is presently being considered to be transferred to the district attorney's office as a felony matter. So if you have any questions, please contact the Victim Advocate's Office for the Solicitor General's office if you have any further questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you. As I was saying, position 1, Alder, is a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. Position 2, Barnett, is a $9,000 split bond, reset date December 28th.
Okay.
Ms. Soto, let's go ahead and mute Ms. Diana. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Position 3, Brammer, is a $2,000 signature bond through the jail or release to the fugitive hold only. Position 4, Graves, is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. 5, Johnson's, $1,000 signature bond through the jail, a release to either Clayton or Upson County only. Position 6 is a $2,000 surety bond, reset date December 28th. 7, Marshall's, a 1,500 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. 8, Saddis Green is a 1,500 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. 9, Neural is a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial, level 2 for the notice. 10 is a $6,000 cash bond only, reset December 28th. 11, Smith is a $5,000 surety bond, reset date December 28th. 12, Thomas is a $5,500 split bond, reset date December 28th. 13 is a Wagner is a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. 14 is a 1,500 signature bond through pretrial for the notice. I think I got all that done. All right. Miss Butts, can you hear me? Anita Butts? All right. Mr. Pierre Thomas, your victim advocate office will need to get in touch with Miss Butt since court's already concluded. And
Thank
give
you,
an
Honor.
update with regards to Mr. Neural.
Yes.
All right. Okay, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Looking forward to the rest of the week.
Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.